With 9th gen consoles still suffering from shortages, it seems that Sony and Xbox are both making other decisions designed to position themselves favorably for when the shortage comes to an end. Let's delve into what both companies are doing to chart their course. By the way, if you like these videos, please be sure to like and subscribe, and be sure to leave your own comments on what the gaming industry might need to do when the shortage comes to an end. For Xbox, it was the Game Pass, and the purchase of independent developers. While Game Pass might well be a winning formula, the independent developers program might well be a miss. Inviting developers of every stripe to create games is an amazing idea, in theory. But the reality is that this might well litter the catalogs of Xbox's archives with subpar games. For every Darkest Dungeon, there are 3 Flusterclucks. That said, once the next-gen drought comes to an end, Xbox and Microsoft might well have their cylinders fully loaded. Sony has decided to go another route. In a move that has confused and disappointed, if not outright angered many fans, Sony has decided to greenlight a remaster, or perhaps a remake, of The Last of Us. Again. While this was initially being handed off to another studio to handle, and while it was initially intended to be packaged with The Last of Us Part 2, neither happened. And it seems that Naughty Dog has once again been given the reins to their own blockbuster IP. Now, the original remaster did make some sense. The Last of Us originally came out at the very end of the PlayStation 3's lifespan, so for those who made the jump from the Xbox 360 to the PS4, it was a good call. Less so for those who jumped from the PS3 to the PS4, hoping for backwards compatibility. Nope, Sony's answer to backwards compatibility has been, for the most part, the remaster. This is not to say that remasters don't have their place. For people who missed the previous generation's games, a remaster often comes with quality of life improvements, slight graphical tweaks, much needed updates and patches rolled into it, and if there was any DLC, they're packed in there as well. This was the case for The Last of Us's first remaster, and no one complained too much. Now, of course, we're heading into the 9th generation of consoles. While there remains a shortage of the consoles themselves, this isn't stopping developers from picking strategies for the currently stalled console wars. Sony, in what I can only describe as a move that makes sense on paper, but which is still somewhat stupid, is to focus primarily on big blockbuster titles, which explains The Last of Us getting its 3rd iteration on as many console generations. At the moment, it's unclear whether this will be another high-fidelity remaster with added detail and graphical prowess, or if it's going to be a more wide-ranging remake to fully take advantage of the PS5's power. It seems pretty pointless. Since PS5 games are backwards compatible with PS4 games, and the people who would buy The Last of Us would have already bought it for the PS4, making yet another remaster of a game that isn't even 10 years old yet seems pretty damn limited. And speaking of limited, the focus on big blockbuster titles, presumably to establish franchises and drive sales, seems like Sony trying to put itself into a creative straitjacket. Now, yes, we're all waiting for the next God of War game, and blockbusters definitely have their place, as they can define a generation. But the truth is, the AAA blockbuster games are often color-by-numbers affairs. But to focus on that alone is to lose the possibility of the sleeper hit. Now, I'm of the opinion that sleeper hits can help define a generation just as much as those big AAA games. For the PS3, it was Demon's Souls. Hard to believe it now, but Demon's Souls didn't get the greatest reception when it came out in Japan. But it attained a cult status there as a difficult but fair game, reminiscent of old-school difficulty in retro games. That cult status, passed about by word of mouth and internet forums, turned Demon's Souls into the sleeper hit. Of course, it was a hit overseas, and the rest is history. Demon's Souls, of course, got its spiritual successor in Dark Souls, which, along with another spiritual successor, Bloodborne, spawned an entire genre of gaming, the so-called Soulsborne games. I'm trying to think of another portmanteau genre, and the only thing that I'm coming up with right now is Metroidvania. Anyway, my point is the Dark Souls trilogy, Bloodborne, and all Souls-like games that have come in vogue all owe a debt to Demon's Souls, a game that the developers feared would be a failure. A more recent example has to be Days Gone, the post-apocalyptic open-world zombie game, with a focus on combat and traversing the open world by motorcycle. While it premiered with middling to fairly decent reviews, fan opinions of it were much better, as the game itself was thematically similar to The Last of Us and mechanically similar to Red Dead Redemption 2, and it eventually accrued a fair amount of success. So much so, in fact, that fans were expecting and looking forward to a sequel, which, it seems, has been rejected. While it's true that we don't know that for certain, the wind seems to be blowing that way. And with the shift in business practices from Sony, who are looking for blockbuster games to win both critical and fan approval, it seems they might not have patience for games that have slow or turbulent beginnings. It seems that Days Gone, not being an absolute critical darling upon release, might have played a role in the supposed rejection. Again, all of that sounds fine on paper, but what is Sony actually saying? Sure, studios are always taking a risk when developing a game, but to constrain developers in such a way suggests a lack of trust in them. Now, of course, this probably isn't the case. This might all just be about the bottom line. Game development in the modern era is ridiculously expensive. No one's denying that. And aiming for home runs with blockbuster games is a good strategy. But without taking risks, without creatives being given room to flex, we might never have seen the likes of Days Gone and Demon's Souls. Hell, it might be too early to say it, but I hope that there's a course correction soon. Sony needs its sleeper hits.